Your equation's flawed, the human teenager said. The alien scientist's laughter echoed through the pristine laboratory until he realized the boy was serious. Ethan Cross adjusted his charcoal-grey retrofuturistic jacket, running his fingers along the worn leather inserts as he trailed behind his alien classmates. The prestigious Galactic Academy of Sciences on Proxima 7 was everything he'd dreamed of and everything he'd feared. As the only human student among thousands of aliens, the past 6 months had been a constant battle to prove himself worthy. "Keep up, Cross," called Professor Thaxian, his deep voice echoing through the pristine corridors of the Proxima Advanced Research Facility. "We're about to enter the quantum mechanics wing." Ethan quickened his pace, adjusting the classic leather backpack slung over his shoulder. Inside were his most prized possessions, handwritten notebooks filled with equations and theories that had earned him grudging respect from even the most skeptical alien instructors. "Sorry, Professor," Ethan mumbled, falling in line with the blue-skinned Proximian students who towered over his 59 frame. The tour was mind-numbing, not because the technology wasn't impressive, but because Ethan had already studied most of these concepts independently. While his classmates gasped at the molecular stabilization chamber, Ethan found himself drifting away from the group, drawn by a heated discussion echoing from a nearby laboratory. "The calculations are sound, Crow. We've been over them a dozen times." "Then why does the simulation keep failing at the dimensional shift? There's something we're missing." Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He slipped away from the tour group and followed the voices to a restricted laboratory. The door was slightly ajar, revealing 5 tall, athletic Proximian scientists gathered around a massive holographic display. Their snow-white hair contrasted sharply with their light blue skin, and their futuristic lab coats with silvery white inserts gave them an air of authority. Ethan recognized one of them immediately, Dr. Arlen Krell, the most celebrated physicist on Proxima 7 and author of half the textbooks Ethan had devoured before being accepted to the Academy. The scientists were arguing intensely, pointing at complex equations that floated in the air and covered a large whiteboard. Red notations and corrections crisscrossed the original formulas, creating a chaotic web of mathematical symbols. "The Riemann matrix is perfectly balanced," insisted one scientist, jabbing his finger at a particularly dense cluster of equations. "The problem must be in the wave function parameters." Ethan's eyes widened as he scanned the equations. The error jumped out at him immediately, so obvious that he couldn't believe these brilliant minds had missed it. Without thinking, he stepped into the room. "Sir, your equation is wrong," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The room fell silent. 5 pairs of piercing silver eyes turned to stare at him. "Doctor." Krell's thin lips curved into an ironic smile before he let out a loud, condescending laugh. "Is it really within your power, human teenager, to understand our most complex calculations?" The other scientists joined in the laughter, but Ethan didn't flinch. He'd faced worse at the Academy. Instead, he walked directly to the board, picked up a red marker, and pointed confidently at the second term of the Riemann matrix. "Right here, in the second term of the Riemann matrix, you're using a Euclidean metric in a space of hyperbolic curvature. This is a dimensional error," Ethan explained, his voice growing stronger with each word. "The solution collapses because you can't ignore the tensor component of the wave function when you cross dimensions. You should apply a Mosaic line correction here." As Ethan wrote out the correction, the laughter died away. The 5 scientists exchanged stunned glances, their arrogant expressions morphing into confusion and then astonishment. "That's impossible," whispered one of the scientists. "Doctor." Krell stepped forward, his silver eyes narrowed as he studied Ethan's work. "Who are you, human?" "Ethan Cross, sir, first-year student at the Academy." "A first year, Doctor." Krell's voice was incredulous. "And you understand multi-dimensional tensor calculus?" Ethan shrugged. "It's just math, sir." Dr. Krell turned to his colleagues. "Run the simulation with the boy's correction." One of the scientists quickly input the modified equation into the holographic display. The simulation that had been failing for days suddenly ran smoothly, the virtual particles flowing through dimensional barriers without collapsing. By the cosmic core, breathed Dr. Krell. He's right. Ethan stood awkwardly as the scientist stared at him with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. He'd spent months trying to earn even a nod of acknowledgement from his professors, and now he'd solved in seconds what had stumped Proxima's greatest minds for days. Mr. Cross, Doctor, Krell said finally, his tone completely transformed. I believe we have much to discuss. Before Ethan could respond, the laboratory door burst open and Professor Thaxian stormed in, his face flushed with anger. Cross, what are you doing in a restricted area? He demanded. Dr. Krell stepped between them. This young human has just saved us weeks of work, Thaxian. In fact, I'd like to borrow him for the remainder of the day, if you don't mind. Professor Thaxian's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to sputter. As you wish, Doctor. Krell. As the professor retreated, Ethan caught sight of his classmates peering curiously through the doorway. Among them was Lyra, a Proximian girl his age, whose violet eyes widened in surprise when she saw him standing confidently among the elite scientists. For the first time since arriving on Proxima 7, Ethan felt like he belonged. News of Ethan's mathematical triumph spread through the academy like wildfire. By the next morning, students who had previously ignored him were stealing glances as he walked through the hallways. Some looked impressed. Others, particularly from the Centauran delegation, seemed distinctly unhappy about a human showing up their best minds. Ethan slid into his seat for advanced theoretical physics, pulling out his worn notebook. He preferred handwritten notes to the holographic tablets the Proximian students used. Something about the physical act of writing helped him process complex concepts. Is this seat taken? Ethan looked up to find Lyra as they walked out together. Ethan noticed a group of Centauran students watching them with unmistakable hostility. The tallest among them, Draven, stepped forward, deliberately bumping into Ethan's shoulder. Careful where you walk, human, he sneered. Some might think you're getting too comfortable here. And some might think you're threatened by a species you consider primitive, Ethan shot back, standing his ground despite Draven towering over him. The Centauran's amber eyes flashed dangerously. Doctor, Krell may be impressed by your party trick, but others understand what humans really are. Reckless, dangerous, barely evolved primates who should be studied, not educated. Back off. Draven, Lyra interjected. Or are you just upset that a human solved in seconds what your people's best scientists couldn't figure out in decades? Draven's jaw tightened. The Proximian Council may have allowed this experiment, but not everyone agrees humans should have access to advanced galactic knowledge. Some things are too dangerous in the wrong hands. With a final glare, he stalked away, his friends following close behind. What was that about? Ethan asked. Lyra sighed. The Centaurans opposed Earth's inclusion in the Galactic Educational Initiative. They believe humans are too unpredictable to be trusted with advanced science. And what do you think? Ethan asked, studying her face. A small smile played at her lips. I think you're the most interesting thing that's happened at this academy in years. She checked her wrist device. I have to go, but you should know, Doctor. Krell has requested you join his research team. That's unprecedented for a first year. Ethan's eyes widened. How do you know that? My father sits on the academy board, she said with a casual shrug. He's concerned about the attention you're receiving. Before Ethan could respond, his communication device chimed with an official academy notification. He was to report to Dr. Krell's laboratory after classes. Looks like you're moving up in the galaxy, Cross, Lyra said, something unreadable in her expression. Just watch your back. Not everyone is celebrating your success. As she walked away, Ethan couldn't help but notice the graceful confidence in her movements, the subtle fragrance she left behind, something like Earth's jasmine, but with an alien undertone. His thoughts were interrupted by another chime, this one from an anonymous sender. The message was simple but chilling. Humans don't belong among the stars. Go home while you still can. Ethan closed the message, his jaw set with determination. He hadn't come this far to be intimidated. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Academic rivals, alien threats, or impossible equations, he would face them head-on. After all, he was human, and humans never back down from a challenge. The Proximian Centauran Joint Academic Initiative proudly announces this year's Galactic Sciences competition, announced Dean Valen, his holographic image projected throughout the Academy. Given recent developments, we've decided to structure this year's challenge as a paired competition. Ethan sat up straighter in his seat. The annual competition was legendary. Winners received automatic placement in the most prestigious research positions across the galaxy. Each team will consist of 2 students from different species backgrounds, the Dean continued. Your challenge: develop a novel approach to the Thaxian Paradox, the unsolved problem of predicting multidimensional phase transitions. Murmurs rippled through the lecture hall. The Thaxian Paradox had stumped galactic mathematicians for centuries. Teams will be assigned based on complementary academic profiles, Dean Valen finished. Assignments will be transmitted to your personal devices momentarily. Ethan's device chimed almost immediately. He glanced down and felt a surge of both excitement and apprehension. Team 7, Ethan Cross, human, and Lyra Neros, Proximian. Across the hall, Lyra caught his eye and raised an eyebrow, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. After class, she intercepted him in the corridor. Looks like we're stuck together, Cross. Could be worse, Ethan replied with a shrug. At least my partner knows what a hyperbolic function is. Lyra laughed, the sound like wind chimes. My quarters, 1900 hours. We should establish our approach early. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. Unless you're afraid I'll outshine you. In your dreams, Neros, Ethan countered, enjoying their verbal sparring more than he cared to admit. When Ethan arrived at Lyra's quarters that evening, he found her surrounded by holographic projections of equations and historical attempts at solving the paradox. You're punctual. Good, she said, gesturing him inside. I've compiled all previous approaches to the Thaxian Paradox, all failures, obviously. Ethan walked through the floating equations, studying them. They're all using the same fundamental framework, trying to predict phase transitions by modeling every possible variable. Of course, Lyra replied. That's the only logical approach. Ethan shook his head. But what if it isn't? He pulled out his notebook and flipped to a page of hand-drawn diagrams. On Earth, we have this concept called intuition. Sometimes we understand patterns without calculating every variable. Lyra frowned. That's not mathematics. That's guessing. Not guessing, pattern recognition, Ethan corrected. Humans evolved as hunters. We had to predict animal movements without complex equations. And how does this primitive hunting skill apply to multidimensional physics? Lyra asked skeptically. Ethan grinned. Watch. He grabbed a light stylus and began drawing directly in the air, manipulating the holographic display. Instead of trying to calculate every variable, what if we look for emergent patterns in the phase transitions? For the next hour, Ethan demonstrated his approach, drawing connections between seemingly unrelated data points. Slowly, Lyra's skepticism gave way to curiosity, then excitement. This is unorthodox, she admitted finally. But I see the potential. You're essentially creating a predictive model based on pattern recognition rather than deterministic calculation. Exactly, Ethan exclaimed. We don't need to know every variable if we can identify the underlying pattern. Lyra studied him with newfound interest. Is this how all humans think? Some more than others, Ethan replied. We call it thinking outside the box, approaching problems from unexpected angles. We don't have this concept, Lyra admitted. Proximian education emphasizes mastery of established frameworks. Innovation comes through perfection of existing methods, not whatever this is. Intuitive leaps, Ethan suggested. Intuitive leaps, she repeated, testing the phrase. Fascinating. As they worked late into the night, Ethan became increasingly aware of Lyra's proximity. When she leaned over his shoulder to examine his calculations, her silver-white hair brushed against his cheek, carrying that jasmine-like scent. Their fingers occasionally touched, as this intuition approach, it's not in any of our textbooks, is not something we would ever develop on our own. Is that a problem? Ethan asked. No, she said thoughtfully. It's an advantage. The other teams will be following conventional methods. They won't expect this. A competitive gleam entered her eyes. We might actually win this, Cross. Was there ever any doubt? Ethan replied with a confident smile. As he walked back to his quarters, Ethan couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had shifted between them. What had begun as rivalry was evolving into something more complex, a partnership that challenged both of them to think differently, and perhaps something even more intriguing was developing beneath the surface. 3 days after their breakthrough, Ethan and Lyra's progress on the Thaxian Paradox had exceeded even their own expectations. Their hybrid approach, combining Lyra's meticulous analysis with Ethan's intuitive pattern recognition, was yielding results that previous researchers had deemed impossible. They were working in one of the Academy's open research labs when Dr. Krell appeared, observing them silently for several minutes before making his presence known. Impressive work, he said, startling them both. Your approach is unconventional. Thank you, sir, Ethan replied, straightening his posture instinctively. Doctor, Krell gestured to their holographic model. This intuitive pattern recognition method, it's not documented in any Proximian or Centauran research. It's a human approach, Lyra explained. Ethan calls it thinking outside the box. Fascinating, Dr. Krell murmured, studying Ethan with renewed interest. Mr. Cross, Miss Neros, I'd like to invite you both to join my research team. Your competition work has direct applications to our Dimensional Gateway project. Ethan exchanged a surprised glance with Lyra. The Gateway project, but that's classified. Yes, Doctor, Krell confirmed, which is why this conversation is taking place in private. The Gateway could revolutionize interstellar travel, allowing instantaneous transportation between distant points in space. We'd be honored, sir, Lyra responded, her voice steady despite the excitement Ethan could see in her eyes. Excellent. Report to Laboratory 7 tomorrow morning. Dr. Krell handed them security clearance chips. And keep your competition work quiet. Your approach is valuable. After Dr. Krell departed, Lyra turned to Ethan, her face flushed with excitement. Do you realize what this means? The Dimensional Gateway is the most prestigious project on Proxima 7. Ethan grinned, sharing her enthusiasm. But before he could respond, a harsh voice interrupted them. Quite the achievement for a human, Draven said, approaching with 2 other Centaurans. One has to wonder how a primitive species suddenly developed such advanced mathematical concepts. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Maybe you should reconsider your definition of primitive. Draven's amber eyes narrowed. Or perhaps we should consider a simpler explanation. Didn't Earth join the Galactic Educational Initiative just 3 years ago? Yet you possess mathematical insights that have eluded advanced civilizations for centuries. He leaned closer. The Centauran Security Council has evidence that you accessed classified human military research before coming to the Academy. That's ridiculous, Ethan snapped. Is it? Draven produced a data tablet. Your solution bears remarkable similarities to classified dimensional research conducted by Earth's Defense Science Division. Ethan stared at him in disbelief. I've never seen that research in my life. The Academic Ethics Committee will determine that, Draven replied with a cold smile. I've already filed a formal complaint. Enjoy your brief moment of fame, human. It won't last. As Draven walked away, Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's arm. He's bluffing. He has to be. Of course he is, Ethan said, though a flicker of worry crept into his mind. But why go to these lengths? Because you threaten them, Lyra said quietly, not just academically. Your presence here, a human excelling among aliens, challenges their entire worldview. Ethan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Great. So now I have to defend myself against charges of stealing research I've never even seen. We'll figure it out, Lyra assured him. In the meantime, we should probably tell my father about this. Your father? Lyra looked uncomfortable. Council member Neros. He's been asking about you. Ethan felt a chill. Asking what exactly? About human intuition, she admitted. The Council is concerned about how quickly humans are advancing. Some members believe your species' unpredictable thought patterns could pose a security risk. Including your father, Ethan asked, studying her face. Lyra hesitated. He's cautious but fair. He'll want to know about Draven's accusations. As they left the lab, Ethan noticed Lyra was unusually quiet. There's something else, isn't there? She sighed. My father invited you to dinner tomorrow night. He wants to meet you. That's unexpected. He's protective, Lyra explained, and curious. He's never met a human before. She paused. And he's noticed we're spending a lot of time together. A faint blue blush colored Lyra's cheeks. Perhaps. They paused at the junction where their paths would separate. Ethan to the human quarters, Lyra to the Proximian residential wing. Ethan, Lyra said, please sit. We have much to discuss. The meal was served by silent household automatons, exotic Proximian cuisine that Ethan had grown to appreciate during his time at the Academy. The conversation began with polite inquiries about Earth and Ethan's family, but he sensed the council member was carefully building to something more significant. Your mathematical intuition is remarkable, Nero said finally. Dr. Krell speaks highly of your contributions. Thank you, sir. The Academy has been an incredible opportunity, Nero's nodded. An opportunity not all believed humans were ready for. The Centaurans in particular opposed Earth's inclusion in the initiative. Ethan set down his utensil. May I ask why, sir? Nero studied him carefully. Officially, they cited concerns about cultural contamination and technological readiness. Unofficially, he glanced at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. We have reason to believe their opposition has a more concerning motivation. He activated a small device on the table, projecting a secure holographic field around them. What I'm about to share is classified at the highest levels. The Proximian Intelligence Directorate has intercepted communications suggesting the Centauran Military Command is particularly interested in Dr. Krell's dimensional gateway. Interested how? Ethan asked, though he suspected the answer. They believe it can be weaponized, Nero said gravely. A gateway that allows instantaneous travel could also allow instantaneous deployment of weapons across vast distances. The Centaurans have been militarizing their border systems for the past year. Ethan felt a chill. And they're trying to discredit me because your intuitive approach accelerated the project timeline by years, Lyra interjected. Father, show him the transmission. Nero's hesitated, then nodded, adjusting the holographic display. A recorded conversation appeared, two Centauran military officials speaking in their native language with translation subtitles. The human's pattern recognition abilities are unexpected. The gateway could be operational within months rather than years. Unacceptable. The Proximians are too peace-oriented to weaponize it. We need control of this technology. The ethics complaint is proceeding. If we can prove the human stole research, the project will stall while they find a replacement. Our agents can ensure that replacement comes from our delegation. Ethan sat back, processing the implications. They fabricated the entire accusation. It appears so, Nero's confirmed, which places us in a delicate position. We cannot reveal we've intercepted their communications without compromising our intelligence sources. So I still have to defend myself against false charges, Ethan said. Not necessarily, Lyra replied, her eyes bright with the look Ethan had come to recognize as her problem-solving expression. What if we could prove Draven is the one tampering with research data? Ethan caught her meaning immediately. Set a trap. Precisely, she said with a smile. We're working on the Gateway project tomorrow. If we can catch him accessing our data, it would discredit their complaint and maintain your intelligence cover. Ethan looked at Council Member Neros. The older Proximian studied Ethan with newfound respect. You two communicate with remarkable efficiency. Lyra's cheeks flushed slightly. We've been working closely on the competition. So I've noticed, her father replied with what Ethan interpreted as the Proximian equivalent of a knowing smile. Very well. I'll ensure the Academy security systems are receptive to any evidence you might gather. As dinner concluded, Neros excused himself to take an urgent call, leaving Ethan and Lyra alone in the family's observation dome. A transparent bubble offering a breathtaking view of Proxima's twin moons rising over the city skyline. "Your father is not what I expected," Ethan admitted. "What did you expect?" Lyra asked, standing close beside him. "Someone more disapproving of humans." She laughed softly. "He was until recently." She turned to face him. "You're changing minds, Ethan, not just his." The moonlight cast a silvery glow on her features, making her seem almost ethereal. Ethan was suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. "Including yours?" he asked quietly. "Perhaps," she admitted, "though I'm still not convinced about all human customs." "Like what?" Her violet eyes held a mischievous glint. "That communication method you demonstrated yesterday. I'm not sure I fully grasped its meaning." Ethan's heart raced as he realized what she was suggesting. "I could demonstrate again, for scientific purposes." "Scientific purposes," she agreed solemnly, though her eyes betrayed her amusement. This time, when Ethan leaned in, she met him halfway. Their lips touched tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. It was nothing like kissing a human girl. Lyra's skin was cooler, with a subtle electric quality that sent pleasant tingles through his entire body. When they separated, Lyra looked slightly dazed. "That was most informative." Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "Is that your scientific assessment?" "Further study may be required," she replied with a smile that made his pulse quicken. "But first, we need to deal with Draven and his false accusations." "Right," Ethan said, reluctantly returning to reality. "Tomorrow we set the trap." As they walked back to join her father, Lyra's hand found his, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that transcended species differences. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Centauran plots, ethics hearings, or the complexities of cross-species romance, Ethan felt ready to face them. After all, he'd already corrected the equations of Proxima's greatest scientists. How much harder could the rest be? Laboratory 7 hummed with energy as Ethan and Lyra arrived for their first day on the Dimensional Gateway project. The lab was a marvel of alien technology, a vast circular chamber dominated by a ring-shaped platform in the center, surrounded by holographic workstations where Dr. Krell's team monitored complex streams of data. "Welcome to the future of interstellar travel," Dr. Krell announced, gesturing proudly to the ring. "The Proximian Centauran Joint Gateway Initiative, though I suspect the joint aspect may soon be reconsidered." Ethan caught the subtle edge in Krell's voice. Council member Neros had clearly briefed him on the situation. "We're honored to join the team, Dr. Krell," Lyra said. "Where would you like us to begin?" "Your intuitive approach to the Thaxian Paradox has direct applications to our stability matrix," Krell explained, leading them to a workstation. "The gateway creates a controlled dimensional fold, but maintaining stability during the transition phase has been our greatest challenge." Ethan studied the equations flowing across the screen. "You're using a linear approximation for the boundary conditions." "Standard procedure," Krell confirmed. "But dimensional boundaries aren't linear," Ethan said, the solution forming in his mind with that familiar intuitive clarity. "They're more like ripples in a pond. Each ripple affects the others in ways that can't be predicted with linear equations." Dr. Krell's eyes widened. "Show me." For the next hour, Ethan and Lyra worked together seamlessly, translating Ethan's intuitive understanding into mathematical language that Krell's team could implement. As they worked, Lyra discreetly activated the trap they had planned, a specially modified section of code that would appear particularly valuable to anyone looking to sabotage the project, but would actually track and record any unauthorized access. "Now we wait," she whispered to Ethan during a break. "If Draven takes the bait, we'll have him." They didn't have to wait long. Shortly after the midday meal, when most of the team was gathered in the adjacent conference room reviewing progress, their monitoring program alerted them to an intrusion. "He's in," Ethan murmured, watching the security feed that showed Draven slipping into the lab and accessing their workstation. "And Council member Neros is recording everything." They watched as Draven downloaded their stability matrix calculations, then, more alarmingly, uploaded something in return. "What's he doing?" Lyra whispered. "Nothing good," Ethan replied grimly. "Let's go." They rushed back to the lab, arriving just as Draven was preparing to leave. His amber eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with contempt. "Working late, Cross. Or should I say, stealing more research?" "That's rich coming from you," Ethan replied, nodding toward the workstation Draven had just accessed. "We know what you're doing." Draven's confident expression faltered slightly. "You know nothing, human." "We know the Centaurans want to weaponize the gateway," Lyra said, stepping forward. "And we have proof you just tampered with our research data." Draven glanced between them, calculating his options. Then, with surprising speed, he lunged toward the exit, only to find his path blocked by Academy security officers, led by Council member Neros. "Draven of Centauri Prime," Neros said formally, "you are detained pending investigation of unauthorized data access and potential sabotage." As the security officers escorted a furious Draven away, Ethan and Lyra rushed to examine what he had uploaded to their system. "It's some kind of virus," Lyra said, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. "Designed to activate during the first full-scale test of the gateway." Ethan studied the malicious code. It would have corrupted the safety protocols. During dimensional transition, the gateway would have collapsed catastrophically, killing everyone in the lab, and potentially creating an unstable dimensional rift that could have threatened the entire planet. Dr. Krell added grimly, joining them at the workstation. Council member Neros approached, his expression grave. "The Centauran ambassador is claiming Draven acted alone, without official sanction." "Convenient," Ethan muttered. "Indeed," Neros agreed. "Nevertheless, we've avoided a diplomatic incident. The ethics complaint against you has been withdrawn, and the Centauran delegation has been restricted from sensitive research areas." "But the virus is still in our system," Lyra pointed out. "And it's sophisticated, designed to evade standard security protocols by mimicking normal system functions." Ethan studied the code more carefully. "It's already integrated itself into the gateway's core programming. We can't just delete it without risking the entire system." "Can you neutralize it?" Dr. Krell asked. Ethan exchanged a look with Lyra. "Maybe, but we'd need to understand exactly how it works first, and that could take days." "We don't have days," Dr. Krell said. "The first full-scale test is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The Galactic Science Council is sending representatives. It's too late to postpone." "Then we work through the night," Ethan said with determination. As the lab emptied, and night fell over the Academy, Ethan and Lyra remained at their workstation, tracing the virus's pathways through the gateway systems. It was elegant in its malevolence, designed to trigger a cascade of failures that would appear accidental. "It's like trying to find a black thread in a dark room," Lyra sighed, rubbing her tired eyes. Ethan stretched, his back stiff from hours hunched over the workstation. "There has to be a pattern. Everything has a pattern." He stood up and walked to the gateway ring, studying its physical structure. Something about the virus's code kept nagging at him, a familiarity he couldn't quite place. "Lyra," he called suddenly, "what if we're thinking about this wrong? What if, instead of trying to remove the virus, we redirect it?" She joined him by the gateway. "What do you mean?" "The virus is designed to create instability in the dimensional fold," Ethan explained, his mind racing ahead. "But what if we could use that instability in a controlled way? Channel it into a secondary system that could safely absorb the energy?" Lyra's eyes lit up with understanding. "A dimensional shock absorber. That could actually work." They rushed back to the workstation and began implementing Ethan's idea, creating a subsystem that would activate the moment the virus triggered, channeling the destructive energy away from the gateway's core. As dawn broke over the Academy, they finalized their modifications. The gateway test would proceed, but with their invisible safeguard in place. "Do you think it will work?" Lyra asked quietly, her shoulder pressed against Ethan's as they watched the morning staff begin to arrive. "It has to," Ethan replied, taking her hand. "Otherwise, a lot of people are going to die." She squeezed his hand, her violet eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "Then I believe it will. You've been right about everything else so far." As the laboratory filled with scientists and dignitaries preparing for the historic test, Ethan couldn't shake a lingering worry. Their solution was theoretical, untested, based on his human intuition rather than proven alien science. If he was wrong, the consequences would be catastrophic. The laboratory buzzed with anticipation as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered for the Gateway's inaugural test. Representatives from 12 species filled the observation deck, their animated conversations creating a symphony of alien languages. Ethan stood beside Lyra at their workstation, monitoring the dimensional shock absorber they had created overnight. "Energy levels nominal," Lyra reported, her voice steady despite her obvious fatigue. "Dimensional fold initiating in 3 minutes." Dr. Krell addressed the assembled officials. "Today marks a historic moment in galactic cooperation. The dimensional gateway will revolutionize interstellar travel, allowing instantaneous transportation between distant points in space." Ethan noticed several Centauran officials watching from the back of the observation deck, their expressions unreadable. Despite Draven's detention, the Centauran ambassador had insisted on attending the test, a political necessity that Council member Neros had reluctantly accepted. "Gateway activation sequence commencing," announced the chief engineer. "Dimensional fold in 60 seconds. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on his monitor, watching for any sign of the virus activating. The massive ring at the center of the laboratory began to hum, emitting a soft blue glow as energy coursed through its structure. 30 seconds to dimensional fold. Lyra's hand found Ethan's beneath the workstation, her cool fingers intertwining with his. "It's going to work," she whispered. 20 seconds. The ring's hum intensified, the blue glow brightening to a brilliant azure that cast strange shadows throughout the laboratory. 10 seconds. 9. Ethan held his breath. 3, 2, 1. Dimensional fold initiated. The center of the ring shimmered, then seemed to tear open, revealing a swirling vortex of light and energy, a controlled rip in the fabric of spacetime. A cheer erupted from the observation deck. For a moment, Ethan thought their safeguard had worked. Then he saw it, a cascade of red warnings flashing across his monitor. "The virus is active," he said urgently. "But it's mutated. Our shock absorber isn't containing it completely." Lyra's fingers flew across the holographic controls. "The dimensional fold is becoming unstable. Energy levels are spiking beyond predicted parameters." The cheers from the observation deck turned to murmurs of concern as the gateway's blue glow began pulsing erratically, streaks of angry red energy crackling around its circumference. "We need to shut it down," Dr. Krell ordered. "We can't," Lyra replied, her voice tight with tension. "The emergency shutdown systems are compromised. The virus has locked us out." Ethan studied the data streaming across his screen, his mind racing to find a pattern in the chaos. The virus isn't just corrupting the safety protocols, it's actively adapting to our countermeasures. "How is that possible?" Dr. Krell demanded. "It must have a self-learning algorithm," Ethan realized. Draven didn't just want to sabotage the test, he wanted to ensure we couldn't stop it once it started. The gateway's pulsations grew more violent, the dimensional tier widening dangerously as arcs of energy lashed out from the ring. "If that tier expands beyond the containment field," Lyra said, "it could create a runaway dimensional cascade. The entire academy could be pulled into the rift." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he spotted a pattern in the virus's adaptations. "It's reacting to our digital countermeasures, but the core instability is in the physical dimensional fold itself." "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Krell asked. "I need to manually adjust the gateway's resonance modulators," Ethan said, pointing to the base of the ring where 3 crystalline structures controlled the dimensional fold's physical properties. "If I can recalibrate them to create a harmonic interference pattern, it might disrupt the virus's control long enough for us to initiate an emergency shutdown." "That's insane," Dr. Krell protested. "Those modulators are within the active field perimeter. The dimensional energies would tear apart anyone who approaches them. Not if they move quickly enough, Ethan countered. The field fluctuations follow a pattern. There's a 3-second window between pulses. Before anyone could stop him, Ethan grabbed a calibration tool and sprinted toward the gateway. Behind him, he heard Lyra's shocked cry and the collective gasp from the observation deck. The air grew heavy as he approached the gateway, time seeming to stretch and compress around him. He counted the pulses of energy, timing his movements between the dangerous flares. 1, 2, 3. Ethan lunged forward during the momentary lull, sliding beneath an arc of crackling energy to reach the first modulator. His fingers worked with practiced precision, adjusting the crystalline structure to the exact frequency he had calculated. 1 down, 2 to go. The second modulator was farther around the ring's circumference. Ethan waited for the next pulse cycle, then sprinted through the temporary safe zone, the hairs on his arms standing on end from the dimensional energy swirling around him. As he reached for the second modulator, a particularly violent energy surge erupted from the gateway, catching him off guard. Pain seared through his left arm as dimensional energy grazed him, but he gritted his teeth and completed the adjustment. The final modulator was directly opposite his position, with no safe path to reach it. The gateway's instability was increasing exponentially. He had seconds, not minutes, before catastrophic failure. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, visualizing the energy patterns, feeling their rhythm in a way he couldn't explain. Then he moved, darting through the maelstrom of dimensional energy with an intuitive grace that seemed to anticipate each dangerous flare before it appeared. Reaching the final modulator, Ethan made the critical adjustment just as the largest surge yet erupted from the gateway. The force threw him backward, sending him skidding across the laboratory floor as the gateway's violent pulsations suddenly froze. The dimensional energies caught in the harmonic interference pattern he had created. "Now!" Ethan shouted, clutching his injured arm. "Emergency shutdown." Lyra's fingers flew across her console, bypassing the virus's lockouts to initiate the shutdown sequence. The gateway's energies began to recede, the dimensional tier slowly closing until only the empty ring remained. Silence fell over the laboratory, broken only by the sound of Ethan's ragged breathing. Then, from the observation deck, a single pair of hands began to clap, followed by another and another, until the entire assembly erupted in thunderous applause. Lyra rushed to Ethan's side, helping him to his feet. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," she said, her voice wavering between anger and relief. "Probably both," Ethan admitted with a pained smile. Dr. Krell approached, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "What you did was completely unauthorized, extremely dangerous, and—" he paused. "Absolutely remarkable. No Proximian or Centauran would have attempted such a maneuver." "Humans have a different approach to problem-solving," Ethan replied. "Sometimes you have to trust your instincts and take the leap." Council member Neros joined them, accompanied by representatives from several alien delegations. "The Galactic Science Council is most impressed, Mr. Cross. Your actions today have demonstrated that humanity brings something unique to our collective knowledge, not just mathematical insight, but courage and intuitive action when faced with crisis." The Centauran ambassador stood awkwardly at the edge of the group, his earlier confidence replaced by obvious discomfort. "The Centauran hegemony officially withdraws all objections to Earth's participation in the Galactic Educational Initiative," he announced stiffly. "We may have misjudged humanity's potential contributions." 2 weeks later, Ethan stood in the Academy's central plaza where a formal ceremony was underway. His arm was still bandaged, but the dimensional burns were healing well. Beside him, Lyra looked resplendent in formal Proximian attire, her violet eyes shining with pride. For exceptional contributions to galactic science and unprecedented courage in the face of danger, Dean Valen announced, "The Academy presents Ethan Cross of Earth with the Galactic Achievement Medal, the first human ever to receive this honor." As Ethan accepted the medal, he caught sight of Dr. Krell in the audience, nodding approvingly. The scientist who had once laughed at the idea of a human teenager understanding complex calculations now led the applause. The ceremony continued with presentations from various galactic delegates, each praising the breakthrough that Ethan and Lyra had achieved together. The Thaxian Paradox solution they had developed was being hailed as a revolutionary approach that would influence mathematical thinking across the galaxy. When the formal proceedings concluded, Ethan found himself surrounded by Academy officials, scientists, and even some of the Centauran delegation who now seemed eager to engage with him respectfully. Mr. Cross, a distinguished-looking Centauran scientist, approached. "I want to apologize on behalf of my people. We allowed fear and prejudice to cloud our judgment. Your work has shown us that diversity of thought is our greatest strength." Ethan shook his hand. "Thank you, sir. I hope this is just the beginning of better cooperation between our species." As the crowds began to disperse, Lyra took Ethan's hand and led him away from the plaza toward the Academy gardens, their quiet refuge from the chaos of celebrity. "Earth is sending 50 more human students next semester," Ethan said, gazing up at the alien constellations overhead. "Apparently, we have a unique cognitive approach that complements traditional alien methodologies." "My father says you've single-handedly transformed how the Council views humanity," Lyra replied, leaning against him. "Though I think your equation correction was more impressive than your gateway heroics." Ethan laughed. "You just prefer mathematics to action." "Perhaps," she admitted, turning to face him, "though I'm developing an appreciation for certain human approaches in other matters as well." Her kiss was no longer tentative, but confident and warm, bridging the gap between their different worlds with the same elegance as Ethan's mathematical insights. When they finally separated, Ethan grinned. "You know, for a species that values logic and precision, you're getting pretty good at human-style improvisation." "I had an excellent teacher," Lyra replied with a smile. "One who wasn't afraid to tell the greatest minds on Proxima that their equation was wrong." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the soft, bioluminescent plants of the garden casting a gentle glow around them. "What happens next?" Lyra asked. "Dr. Krell wants us to continue working on the Gateway project. The Council is talking about establishing a joint human Proximian research initiative, and we still have our competition presentation to finalize." "All of that," Ethan said, "and I still have to finish my regular coursework. Professor Merrick wasn't impressed when I told him I'd been too busy saving the Academy to complete my temporal mechanics assignment." Lyra laughed. "I'll help you. Though I expect you to help me understand more of this intuition concept, it's still quite foreign to me." "Deal," Ethan agreed. "Though I have to warn you, teaching intuition is like teaching someone to see a color they've never seen before. It's not something you can explain with equations." "Then you'll just have to find another way," Lyra said, her competitive spark returning. "After all, you're the one who thinks outside the box." 6 months later, Ethan stood at the viewport of the Academy's observation deck, watching as the transport ship carrying Earth's new students approached Proxima 7. 50 young humans, all selected for their unique talents and perspectives, ready to begin their own journeys among the stars. "Nervous?" Lyra asked, joining him at the window. "A little," Ethan admitted. "I remember how overwhelming it was when I arrived, being the only human, constantly having to prove myself." "They won't have that experience," Lyra said. "Because of you, humans are now seen as valuable contributors to galactic knowledge. You changed everything." "We changed everything," Ethan corrected, taking her hand. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. The Thaxian Paradox solution had won them the Galactic Sciences competition, earning both of them positions on Dr. Krell's permanent research team. The Dimensional Gateway project was moving forward with enhanced safety protocols and a new focus on peaceful applications. More significantly, the Galactic Council had established the Human Integration Initiative, a program designed to bring human cognitive approaches, particularly pattern recognition and intuitive problem-solving, into mainstream galactic research. Ethan had been appointed as the student liaison, working with council member Neros to help the new human students acclimate. "The transport is docking," Lyra observed. "We should head to the arrival bay." As they walked through the academy corridors, Ethan noticed how different things were now. Human students were no longer a curiosity, but an accepted part of academy life. The cafeteria had added Earth food options. The library included human literature and history, and several professors had begun incorporating human problem-solving methods into their curricula. In the arrival bay, Ethan watched as the new students emerged, their faces a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He remembered that feeling, the weight of representing an entire species, the fear of not measuring up. A young woman, perhaps 16, approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Ethan Cross?" "I am," Ethan replied with a welcoming smile. "I'm Maya Chen. I just wanted to say thank you. Because of what you did, my family actually believed I could make it here. They didn't think humans belonged among the stars until they heard about you." "You belong here just as much as anyone," Ethan told her. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And remember, what makes us human, our intuition, our creativity, our ability to see problems from unexpected angles, that's not a weakness. It's our strength." Maya nodded, her confidence visibly growing. "I'll remember that." As the new students dispersed to their orientation sessions, Ethan felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Dr. Krell standing behind him. "Quite the mentor you've become, Mr. Cross," the scientist said. "Though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You've exceeded expectations at every turn." "Thank you, Dr. Krell. That means a lot, especially coming from you. I wanted to inform you that the Galactic Science Council has approved our proposal," Dr. Krell continued. "We'll be establishing the first joint human-alien research station in the Sol system, orbiting Earth. You and Miss Neros will be among the founding research team." Ethan's eyes widened. "We're going home." "For a time, yes," Dr. Krell confirmed. "Your insights have proven invaluable, but we believe there's much more to learn about human cognitive processes. Working with researchers on Earth will help us understand how your species' unique evolutionary path shaped your approach to problem-solving." After Dr. Krell departed, Lyra squeezed Ethan's hand. "Earth," she said softly, "I'll finally see your homeworld. And you'll meet my family," Ethan added with a grin. "Fair warning, my little sister is going to ask you a million questions about Proxima 7. "I look forward to it," Lyra said, "though I'm more interested in experiencing Earth's culture. Your music, your art, your food. All the things that shaped your intuitive thinking." They made their way back to Laboratory 7, where their latest project awaited. A refined version of the dimensional gateway that incorporated lessons learned from Draven's sabotage attempt. The new design included redundant safety systems, and more importantly, integrated human intuitive monitoring, alongside traditional Proximian analytical controls. As Ethan reviewed the latest calculations, he marveled at how far he'd come. 6 months ago, he'd been an outsider, struggling to prove himself worthy of his place at the Academy. Now he was helping to shape the future of galactic cooperation, bridging the gap between human and alien approaches to science. "Your equation's wrong," Lyra said suddenly, pointing at his work with a teasing smile. Ethan looked at the calculation, then back at her. "No, it's not." "I know," she admitted with a laugh. "I just wanted to see your reaction. After all, that's how this all started, you telling Dr. Krell his equation was wrong." "And look where it led us," Ethan said, pulling her close. "Sometimes the best things come from challenging the established way of thinking." "Speaking of which," Lyra said, "I've been working on something. A paper proposing a new field of study, comparative cognitive mathematics. The idea is to systematically study how different species approach problem-solving and find ways to combine those approaches for better results." "That's brilliant," Ethan said, reading through her notes. "This could revolutionize how the galaxy approaches research." "It was inspired by us," Lyra admitted, "by what we've accomplished together. I realized that the future of galactic science isn't about one species being superior to another. It's about understanding and valuing our differences." Ethan kissed her forehead. When did you become such an optimist? When I met a human who wasn't afraid to think differently, she replied. You taught me that there's more than one way to solve a problem, more than one path to truth. That's a gift I want to share with the entire galaxy. As evening fell over Proxima 7, Ethan and Lyra stood together in the laboratory, working side by side on equations that would shape the future of interstellar travel. Outside the windows, the twin moons rose over the alien landscape, casting their silver light across a world that had become Ethan's second home. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the fear, the challenges, the moments of doubt, but also the triumphs, the friendships, and the love he'd found in the most unexpected place. The galaxy was vast, filled with infinite mysteries waiting to be solved. And now, with humans and aliens working together, combining their unique strengths and perspectives, anything seemed possible. Ethan smiled as he wrote out another equation, this one flowing naturally from the intuitive understanding that had become his trademark. Beside him, Lyra translated his insights into rigorous mathematical proofs, their different approaches complementing each other perfectly. They were more than partners in research. They were proof that the greatest discoveries come not from following a single path, but from daring to explore new ways of thinking, from bridging divides, from believing that different perspectives make us stronger together than we could ever be apart. As Ethan Cross looked up at the alien stars through the laboratory windows, he knew this was just the beginning. The equation of his life had only just started to unfold, and every variable, every unknown, every challenge ahead was an opportunity to prove once again that sometimes the most profound solutions come from the most unexpected places. After all, he'd learned the most important lesson the galaxy had to teach, that in a universe of infinite diversity, humanity's greatest contribution wasn't just their mathematics or their technology. It was their uniquely human ability to dream of impossible things, and then find a way to make them real. The stars beckoned, mysteries awaited, and Ethan Cross was ready for whatever came next.